Good morning and welcome to the show. My name is Sean Smith.
And my name is Prescott Phillips, and this is Brew City Bug Talk.
Hello and welcome back to the show. How's it going today, Prescott?
It's going to be a good show today. This is the first show of 2025.
Yes, Happy New Year for all of our listeners out there.
Oh, we forgot to talk about this. This is like our 1 year anniversary.
That is true. Yes, it is the 1 year anniversary of the show. That actually popped up on my Facebook stream. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's been a quick year, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun. This has been kind of cool doing this thing, creating this podcast. Thank you to everybody out there who's helped support us.
Yeah, thank you. What did we hit? 8,000?
8,000. The 8,000 marker was hit. Sadly, it was not the 10,000 that I wished for, but I mean, hey.
That was wish for a lot and be grateful for a little.
And that was basically because we failed to put out content for like a month and a half. So yeah, it's the winter in Wisconsin. There's not a whole lot going on Volkswagen wise.
Yeah, so it kind of, but we still made 8,000. Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool.
That was pretty awesome. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the list. I started for those that follow me on Facebook or follow the group on the podcast on Facebook. We started a air-cooled Volkswagen shop list all throughout the United States, and it's actually kind of taken off, which is pretty awesome. I started, I don't know, just one night I sat down and I went and searched out as many groups as many Volkswagen groups as I could throughout the United States. Basically, I tried to find at least one in every state, and then I joined it and then introduced myself and then told them what we were doing through the podcast. And then like a couple days later, I started the list and I said, post your information here. It actually got away from me for a little while.
Yeah, it was a little, all of a sudden, boom. Yeah. Everybody's like, I live here and this is the shop I have, or this is the shop I use, or you need to put this shop on your list. And I'm like, okay. But of course you put on there that these are not vetted shops.
Yes, I made that disclaimer loud and clear. These are not vetted. We're just trying to put the shop list together. It is your job to vet the shop or choose the shop that you want to use. It's just to help people out to know that there's...
Yeah, a lot of people are new to the hobby or new to the area, and they don't know anything or anybody. And not everybody works on their own stuff, so they got to find a shop to work on it.
Yep.
And they might have just moved there or something, or they broke down in the middle of nowhere.
If you're traveling, that's a big thing. And all of a sudden you break down, you need to know where you can get fixed.
Yeah, not everybody's local corner gas station is going to work on your bus when it broke down.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, thank you to everybody out there who helped contribute to that list. It's still growing. So if you have a shop that you haven't mentioned or that's not on the list, hit us up on Facebook. Send us an email at bcbugtalk@gmail.com and we'll get them on the list.
Did you find one for Alaska?
No, no, I did not find one. There's
got to be one in Anchorage or somewhere.
There's a couple of big states that you wouldn't think of that haven't responded yet, that have no shops. So I don't know if the people just aren't seeing the post or just there aren't any out there.
Yeah, like what? Like Montana?
Florida's a big one.
Oh, Florida. There's a million shops.
Nobody's responded.
They're hating on our podcast.
They must be.
I'll find just when I go down to for sick week.
Yeah.
I'll jump on those.
I reached out to Mindy and Breeze from the...
Sure, they
yeah. No, she actually said that a lot of the shops are closing. Like, there's not a lot of shops. It's a lot of...
then she's got to get on the ones that aren't.
Well, no, she said a lot of it is like word of mouth, friends helping each other out type of stuff. Like, she doesn't know of any like shops that are... But she's also a snowbird, so she's not down there.
We'll talk to Breeze. Yeah. We'll get some Florida.
We'll figure it out.
Like did anybody in Ohio?
Ohio responded. I think I have one for Ohio finally.
Because there's Brian Drew's shop, and there's a bunch of shops in Ohio.
Well, you need to contribute to that list, Prescott, because get on it. But yeah, Iowa was another one. I think I finally got one for Iowa, Nebraska. That I don't think there's any. There was one shop in Nebraska. Some guy messaged me and said his shop is there, so that was cool.
Okay.
Minnesota, that's another one.
There's some shops in Minneapolis.
I've reached out to Minnesota groups and I still haven't received any feedback from them. So
That'll take a minute.
yeah, I mean it's only been a week and a couple of days, so I'm sure hopefully it'll pick up soon.
You might get into some bad stuff too. I mean, some people might message you and go, "Ooh."
Oh, I've already had people say I wouldn't recommend that shop, and I'm like, well, I'm not trying to recommend any of these shops. I'm just putting them on a list so that way you guys can determine whether or not
they exist.
Yep,
Right.
exactly. So what do we have going on? What else is you have some stuff coming up here?
Yeah, in a couple of weeks here, I think the 25th, we're leaving for Sick Week, the Dragon Drive in Florida. So I'm hanging out with Chuck Pryor and the rest of the gang down there. Ben,
Who is all going in your group that you're with?
me, Chuck, his wife, and his son.
Okay.
And Ryan, yeah, I don't know if Ryan's going or not.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him post about anything.
No, he can't go. He's got a job.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah. So it's me, Chuck, his wife, and his son.
Okay.
That's it. No.
did you guys find an RV or something like that too?
No, we're winging it.
Oh my God.
We are.
Are you renting a car or are you driving?
No, we're driving Chuck's dad's truck. That's what we're pulling down there with, and then I'll follow along in the sick ward in the truck.
Okay.
And I talked to Mindy. You know anybody down there with a pop-up camper or anything like that? I could pull it with the truck, right?
Yeah.
And she goes, nope. I go, okay, I guess I'm buying a air mattress and a sleeping bag at Walmart.
Well, you still got a couple weeks left. Maybe some of our listeners will send us an email here.
We're not worried about places to stay.
No, I'm talking about somebody will donate a pop-up camper for you to use.
Oh, that would be well. What Mindy says, she said, "Why don't you just hook a tow bar up to the bus that doesn't run,
I mean, yeah,
and sleep in the bus?"
that's an option. There you go.
I says, "Okay."
You look like you're hauling junk across state.
It still gets chilly down there even in January.
Yeah, it's gonna be chilly, so but we'll see what happens.
Okay.
If we end up sleeping in a truck, we sleep in a truck.
Hey, it'll be a fun adventure.
Yeah, right. We'll find something. I mean, it's not going to be the end of the world.
I don't know. Maybe we can call you a couple of nights during the week and do an episode and just give us a recap. We can.
Yeah, I'll give you a recap of who's there and what happened and who's still in and who's out and stuff we ran into.
Yeah, I'll see what we can work out. That'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Yeah. All right. So what do we have going on today? Who do we have on the show?
We have a guest, out of the ordinary kind of guest. He's not really a true, Volkswagen
Not an expert.
And he does something that is very intriguing, and that's why we got him on the podcast so we could talk to our listeners about it. Why don't you introduce yourself, Shawn?
I'm Shawn Wiedenhoeft, and I'm a pilot, and I put Volkswagen engines on airplanes.
Yeah, he's got a Volkswagen. And how did we meet? I don't recall entirely. You needed something, or
Yeah,
something?
I bought your book.
And that's how it all started.
That's how it all started because it started long before that, but I bought your book and I needed some advice, I think, and I called.
And I'm like, I've built a couple. I've done machine work for a couple Volkswagen powered airplanes.
So hold on, let's back this up and tell our listeners real quick. So you build airplanes, right?
I'm a pilot who builds airplanes.
Like smaller single engine
Home builds. Yeah.
What do you call them?
Experimental home build.
Experimental home builds, and you use Volkswagen motors to power them.
Which isn't out of the ordinary. They've been doing that for how many years?
Since the 50s.
Yeah, since Volkswagen's been invented. They've been using the power plants.
Yeah, lots of years.
To power everything. And that's, back in the day, that's what everything was. Like a Model A or a Model T, they pulled a motor out of it and put it in.
Yeah, they still use those motors on there's certain airplanes, Peyton Pauls.
Yeah.
They're called. And if you want to do a true vintage Peyton Paul, you got to put a Model A engine on it. It's got the air cooler right in front of the windscreen.
Right. Yeah, you can't see
the
anything.
oil cooler. Yeah, you can't see around the oil cooler.
Right, but you're using Volkswagen power, which is just amazing. So the first motor you built, why don't you tell us about that?
Well, I got into building and flying, and my original airplane that I built, it was the basic, easiest to build, hand tools, drill press in your garage type home built, called an affordaplane. It was a perfect name for it, and that's what intrigued me. It's actually the name is kind of off-putting.
Right.
It gets scoffed at a lot.
No, those are one where there's no welding.
No welding. It's all
bolted together.
Bolted together with gussets. It's the fuselage is 2x2 aluminum, square aluminum, flat. You build it on a table, and then you tip it up, and you put landing gear on it, and a tail and wings, and a little instrument panel, and I actually had my seat was a wooden seat from a school desk because wood is light.
And what was this powered by?
And my original power was a Kawasaki 440.
Oh, motorcycle engine.
Yeah, well, snowmobile engine.
Snowmobile. Okay.
Back in
that small of an engine will power a plane?
The plane itself is only 200 pounds. Wow. Well, 300 pounds.
Right.
And then you got the pilot and the fuel. And
what's your background? How did you get into planes and piloting?
Well, I was a military pilot. I flew Harriers in the Marine Corps.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Yeah, a long time ago, I was in Desert Storm, so it was a while back.
Back in the 1900s.
Yep. Got out in '95 and then moved to Wisconsin and had a flying drought for a while and had a wife and 5 kids, so I couldn't take on another,
those damn kids.
Loan. Yeah, like a brand new
Dream
Ford
crushers.
F-150 loan to buy an airplane. Yeah, dream crushers. Yeah. No, I love her. They're wonderful.
We're only kidding.
Yeah.
It's all fun and games.
Yeah. But so I wanted to get flying again. And, I'm kind of a person that starts from the very bottom. I like to start from the bottom and work my way up. So I just thought, I'll build an airplane in my workshop and it'll be something to get me off the ground and I'll go from there.
Yeah, and every failure or success is going to be yours and yours alone.
Exactly. That's another part that I loved about it.
A lot of people don't build their own engines. Like this 440 snowmobile engine.
Yeah.
You didn't have that apart, did you?
No, I didn't. I bought
it
that.
Ran.
Yeah, no, there's actually a guy near here that sells 440s with a redrive, a reduction drive on it.
Right. Yeah, it's a belt-driven thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a belt-driven reduction drive with a 440, so you can run the RPMs up and still have plenty of power to the propeller.
Right.
Plenty of torque and.
Well, those things made like 50 horsepower, right?
40 something. Okay. 40, which is plenty for a little airplane.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a 2-stroke, just loud as hell and all that. Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the thing is I flew that around for a while and I enjoyed it, but I found myself, I'd be flying and I'd be staring at the CHD, and I'd be looking at the EGT and I'm thinking, man, that's a lot of RPMs.
It's a lot of RPMs. That's a lot of heat and a lot of noise.
Exactly. And so my logical mind is telling me, any engine, it's got so many revolutions in it, and
then it needs to come
it's going
apart.
to stop. So I really wanted to look at 4-strokes.
Right.
And but for a little airplane like that, then you start researching 4-strokes, and pretty much there's other 4-strokes like people have used Corvairs engines, and there's old like Continentals that are actually made for airplanes, but those are all expensive. And if you want to keep the price down, and Volkswagens are the game in town to do that.
Right. There's companies that are out there like is it Revmaster,
Sonex.
Right. They're all Volkswagen based.
Yeah,
airplane
Aero-V.
only engines. Right. They have their own carburetor. So now the first motor you built wasn't a 4-cylinder.
No, because of the size of my airplane, a 4-cylinder is way too much engine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a huge compared to a little, 300-pound, bunch of bolted aluminum together.
So yeah,
I wanted
think
something
that's
lighter.
what some of the first questions they had with me is like, I'm going to make this into a 2-cylinder.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've seen it done.
So you took a Volkswagen. What size motor was it? 1600?
No, it ended up bigger than that.
It was, I think it was a 1600, and I kept the full case, but I only had you machine the rear two, and to me it's the front two, because you hang the propeller off the pulley end.
So it would have been 2 and 4.
Yeah. I had you machine those out for 94 millimeter.
So it was 94. So it was half of 1914.
Yeah, something like that.
Was 850, 100, something like that. CCs.
And you can go a couple different ways with a half Volkswagen. You can actually cut the case in half.
Right, and
which
you had talked about that, but
yeah.
Then there was a lot of monkeying around to get the mounted thing, because you're chopping off the mounting plate, basically.
Right.
And it's like, so you kept that and you just plugged the holes off and kept the full length crank.
Plugged the cylinder holes, and it was actually a half crank and a half cam.
Okay, it was a half cam.
Yeah, that I bought from a guy in Maryland that tried to start a half Volkswagen shop, and he went out of business. There's not a lot of market for a half Volkswagen.
And it's a lot of work. I think.
But he had a sale on for all these cranks and cams that he had.
Yeah, that were just missing the tail end of them.
Yeah.
And then you just corked off all the oil passages that went to nothing.
Pretty much, but I wanted to keep the full case because of the oil capacity and the oil flow.
And that was another thing, was like the pickup is right in the middle
for
the oil.
Yeah.
So now you got to move that. You got no way to mount it. There's a lot of.
So did you build all this yourself, or?
Pretty much. I bought a case, took it into my workshop. I cut off the bell housing so that it was this rectangle.
Okay.
For mounting, I actually mounted it from the bottom. When you have the case split, I drilled holes in where the oil reservoir is. So you got 2 bolts on each side to some, angle aluminum, like a 1/4-inch angle aluminum. And that's how you mount it onto the airframe.
Okay.
So, and you gotta gasket it real well and everything, so you don't have oil leak.
Yeah, you just drill holes in the bottom, like drilling holes.
Basically,
in the
drill holes in. Yeah. And so half crank, half cam. I got 2.
So hold on, back up real quick to the half crank, half cam. Do they actually cut a crank in half and then just weld a piece onto it to make up for that space, or how?
No, the way it works out.
The
way it works out, it you got the saddles.
Okay, I'm thinking because you have your motor's twisted backwards, so
the prop runs off the pulley.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everybody that's a Volkswagen driver has to start thinking about the engine backwards when you start thinking about airplane.
You don't need anything on the back. You don't need a flywheel.
There are some guys that do flywheel end.
Oh, they turn it around?
Yeah, they turn it around and they run the prop off the flywheel end, but that
sounds like a lot of work.
Well, either way, it sounds like a lot of work.
Either way, it's a lot of work.
Well, to me, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And it's super
and
popular.
I remember the thing I kept saying was, I'm going to run this for hours and hours and hours. I'm going to taxi for hours and hours and hours just to make sure that I got everything tight.
Before
I get in the air.
Because you had some issues you called me about, oil pressure or something. Was that the motor?
Yeah, that was, that one and the one I built after.
You had issues with both of them. We're not dialed in perfectly.
Like I said, I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
I'm learning as I go.
Yeah.
And you're the expert for me.
Yeah.
You're my guru.
And I feel bad, like, if I got the wrong advice here, he's gonna crash and die. You're like, no, it'll be fine.
No.
So the first airplane, how did it fly? Fly pretty good.
It flew great. Yeah, I loved it.
What do you think that made for horsepower? The half a.
I think it was around
40,
35, 40.
Wow, that's all you need to get off the ground.
Yeah. I had Nicosil 94 millimeter, cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty big cylinders for little
What heads are you running on those?
Okay, there's a guy in Arizona. He has a shop called Hummel Engines, and he actually specializes in taking stock Volkswagen engines and building them into airplane engines.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he lives in Arizona, so it's not like I can send stuff. And if you're going to buy it, he sells engines
Right,
for
complete.
airplanes.
Yeah,
His name is Scott Kastler, and he
long blocks.
Hummel Engines is his shop.
Not a sponsor, but could be.
Yeah, he's great.
Why don't we get him on the show
He's a guy that you can call and he'll talk to you
all day?
all day. Yeah, I mean, he really is
Like me.
helpful. Yeah. And there's another place in, I think it's Kansas, called Great Plains Aviation.
Right, I've heard of them.
They used to be better. They got sold, and the guy that bought them, I think his name is Art, he's had health problems, so it's kind of hard
That's
to get
the
him.
trouble. All these guys
Yeah.
are getting older,
Yeah,
me included.
yeah.
So it's like, man,
Me
if
too.
if the kid don't take over,
Yeah.
shop is pretty much in limbo.
Yeah.
That's what we told you about them transmissions. You don't teach somebody how to build them, you're going to die someday, and that knowledge is gone.
That's my bread and butter.
Yeah.
You take them to the grave with you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. I'm going to take my transmission core pile to my grave. So this.
So he actually will sell you heads for.
Now does he take stock heads and cut them in half and weld them together, right?
Yep, that's what he does. He cuts the middle section out, welds the two ends together.
Right. So it uses the exhaust port as the intake on one side of it, right? Is that how that works?
No, the exhaust or the intake comes in from the top.
Intake
From
comes
what I
in from
remember.
the top.
I
Okay.
think.
Because I've seen them either way.
Let me check.
No worries. We'll get pictures of that later on, and hopefully I'll get a hold of you after the episode, and we'll get some pictures, and we can post them up and everything like that.
Okay.
Right. So I've seen them either way. Either to use.
You know
Yeah,
what?
you got
Now that I
exhaust
think about it,
on
you're
both.
right, because the ports, and this was a couple of years. I sold it probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Right. Remember
So I
that.
haven't seen the engine in a while, but
Mhm.
Do you
I
know if
think
it's
you're right.
still-
It might have been.
Yeah, they
the
just take out the
intakes.
center section. They open up the intake valves,
Yeah.
seats to use a bigger valve.
Yeah.
And
The
it's got,
exhaust is on the front, just two pipes.
two
pointing
pipes
down.
pointing down, two little J pipes,
Yeah.
and then the other side is just sucking through a side draft. Right?
Do you know if that thing's still flying to this day?
Yeah, I get videos from the guy that bought it.
How many hours do you have on it?
I had about 75 to 80 hours on it, which is actually quite a lot.
That's a lot. That's
Yeah.
for flying. Yeah.
Yeah, I flew
Was
it
it
a
fun
lot.
to fly?
It was a blast. But the thing about these light little airplanes is you got to fly them either early in the morning or late in the evening.
Why is that?
If you take off in the middle of the day on a hot day,
Bacon.
the
You're
thing
closer
is
to the sun.
that, and the sun beats down on different colored fields, like over a forest, it absorbs the heat.
Right.
Over like a field of corn, it kind of reflects the heat,
Okay.
and you get banged around all over the place.
Oh,
So
really?
you're like pulling G's. You're like
Wow.
looking at your wings, thinking, God, I hope these
don't
hold up,
Help by tighten
because
them
it's a lot of turbulence in the middle of the day. So
Okay.
Now, what is your flight time on? Oh, like how long could you fly on that one?
I could fly an hour and a half.
Okay.
Wow.
I usually only flew like 40 minutes or 45 minutes, and then I'd land.
Right. It's
Do some landings.
Yeah, you give your heart a break.
Right, exactly.
You don't
Yeah.
need your heart rate up.
This
that high.
airplane, and I sent you a picture of it. It has no sides. It's just a seat.
Yeah, just to
You know,
see. You can just
You
fall
got
out of
a
it.
full seat belt, 5-point seat belt. But,
Yeah, right.
You're just looking straight down at the ground.
Right. Now the next plane you built was a little more involved.
Yeah, so I sold that one. I wish I hadn't, because I really loved it. I had a great time with that Florida plane.
So it was
with the hack
basically your
Volkswagen.
first plane was basically an ultralight, right?
Yeah, pretty much. There's lots of FAA pilot interaction about what's an ultralight and what isn't an ultralight. But if it looks like an ultralight, nobody's going to bug you,
Right.
even if
right,
it's 20 pounds with 40 pounds overweight.
right. What's
Nobody's
the
gonna bug
weight
you.
break?
I think it's like 270
Okay.
around there. If you're under 270, you're a true ultralight.
Dry.
That includes, dry with the engine
Okay.
and any comm stuff. But without the pilot and the fuel.
Mhm.
It's got to be under 270.
Okay.
So
but
if it's above that,
if it weighs under 300, they usually let it go.
Yeah.
If it looks
yeah, you're not going
legit.
to have any.
They don't want you to die.
Right. And the nice thing about that is, ultralights, they don't even classify them as airplanes. It's like
No.
a vehicle.
No.
So
okay.
that's why you're not regulated by the FAA. But
It's not a
as you
plane.
get into a bigger airplane, maybe 400 or 500 pounds, like the next one I built,
Right.
then you have to have the FAA come in and do a full certification.
Well, yeah,
and
then it's
certified
it's
as
like a real plane. Then you got
Yeah.
annuals, you got all that stuff.
Mhm.
It gets more involved. It takes
Yeah.
all the fun out of it.
Yeah, but still, it amazed me that in today's day and age, they still have the home-built experimental class.
Yep.
That you can build an airplane and fly it yourself.
Right. If you're the builder and the pilot, they kind of go, well,
You actually get a card saying you're the.
only one that can fly it.
I got a card that I am an experimental aircraft technician
From the FAA?
from the FAA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but that's what they consider you. That you're the technician. You do the annuals on it. You do all the inspections.
Yeah. Nobody even wants to look at your airplane if you built it. It's like they don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't- you know,
Well, some of them are experts,
Yeah.
in the field, like home builds, and they're actually now they've kind of contracted out to people to do the inspections. The FAA has.
you're right.
So
Money involved there.
yeah, so you pay the inspector.
Yeah, way too
And-
much
Yep.
for him to go. Yep,
hmm
that's fine.
All right.
That's what he did.
Back with this, the second airplane that you built. What exactly was it that you built?
I built a Fokker D8.
A what? A Fokker? Fokker or fucker?
Fokker,
Okay. I need to
like
edit
meet the
that.
Fokkers.
Just edit it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Germans really like to. They kept that name.
So tell me about your Fokker here.
So my Fokker, it was actually a 3/4 scale Fokker.
That's a big Fokker.
Yeah. I had
You're
a lot
gonna
of fun
edit
with
the
my
crap
Fokker.
out of this.
Yeah. So, but it's a company out of Missouri called Aerodrome Airplanes, and they will send you all the parts you need. They'll send you all the parts you need to build a World War I replica. So he's got like Newports and Sopwith Camels,
So
stuff like that.
for our listeners, how big is this thing in feet?
The wingspan was 26 feet,
Wow,
and the fuselage was, I think, around 16 feet.
that's a pretty big plane. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big Fokker.
Yeah.
It's never gonna get old.
Never
Well-
gonna get old. Your son's gonna love this episode.
That's it, Fokker.
That's a Fokker.
Well, I mean,
Why did you pick that plane? You could have built anything.
He likes saying Fokker.
I like saying Fokker. My last name's
it is-
Wiedenhoeft, so it had to be German.
You had to be a German plane.
Yeah,
There you
even though
go.
my mom, she married the German, so she's like, "Why are you building a German airplane?"
Yeah, I hate
You know,
those guys.
Mom,
It's
we
our
stopped
heritage,
fighting them,
right?
back in 1945.
Yeah, they're on our side now.
But
So
I liked the design. I thought it would be a lot of fun. It was a single wing, a high wing.
Mhm.
Have you ever? I don't know if you remember the movie Blue Max
Mhm.
from the 60s. It's a World War I pilot. If you're a pilot, you've probably watched it
Right,
4 or 5 times. But
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, great movie.
the Blue
yeah,
Max,
Blue Max
Yeah, Blue
top,
with
top
George
10.
Papard.
Yeah, Blue Max. Yep, top 10. Watch it monthly.
Anyway,
George Papard.
the airplane right at the end of it that he's flying, where he gets killed because the wings come off.
You wanted
that
one
was-
just like
That was based on the Fokker D8. Yeah. And
Oh man,
A lot of confidence behind that design.
yeah. I'm gonna build a plane just like that one that the wings ripped off of. That sounds great.
well, but
All right,
pilots
so-
are crazy.
What engine did you build for this Fokker?
I built a standard. Well, not a standard, but I built a 4-cylinder Volkswagen.
4-cylinder 1600?
I bought the case from you, and it was a fuel injected case, so it didn't have the
Fuel pump.
the fuel pump.
Mm-hmm.
So
Did you have the pistons? Did you have it poured out bigger?
yeah,
Yeah, we made a 1914 out of it, didn't we?
actually 2054 is what I worked it out
right.
to.
Yeah, we got
because it was a 74 millimeter stroke
Stroker. Yeah.
74 millimeter by what?
by 94 millimeter pistons or cylinders.
Yeah, we had a pretty good sized motor.
Yeah. It's 2054. It had dual ignition,
Yeah,
dual
redundant
carburetors.
Yeah.
The ignition, I stayed with I really like staying with original ignition.
Right.
Because I run mine off of batteries. I hand start the airplane, turning the prop.
Yeah.
Like in the old school pictures where they crank. Okay.
Yeah, it's called hand starting.
The prop is the flywheel.
Basically, but it's on the pulley end.
Yeah, but basically the flywheel effect is from from the prop.
Yeah.
Now, is that a special prop? Pitch, blade,
yeah,
diameter, all that stuff?
It's got to be custom because Volkswagens, when you're sitting in the cockpit looking forward, it turns to the right. No, it turns to the left.
Yeah, it goes clockwise if you're looking at it.
If you're looking at it, it goes clockwise.
Mm-hmm.
Most airplane engines, if you're looking at them, they go the other way.
Really?
In other words, if you add power on a standard airplane, it wants to turn the left.
Oh, this one.
Volkswagen wants to turn right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into a little later.
So then
Back to the motor real quick. What were the heads on there? Were those just standard?
They were standard heads. I got them from AA Performance.
Okay. Now is
I
it a
drilled them
special cam?
I bought the cam from you, Scat C35, C20.
C20. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you said it would work well.
Yeah, because you didn't want a lot of RPM. You just wanted some.
That's the thing is an airplane, Volkswagen, you're not looking for compression. You're not looking for high RPMs. You're not even looking for a lot of extra horsepower. What you want is cool and torque.
Torque, right? And torque. What's the thing when you're cruising? What's the RPM, like 3,500 or something? 3 grand?
No, the RPM's actually governed by the propeller that you get. The bigger the propeller, the lower the high RPM is going to be.
Right.
So, and I went with a big propeller. It was a 60-inch by 30-inch pitch propeller.
And that pulled the
RPM
RPM
was torquey.
down.
And the highest RPM I could get on the ground was 2,900.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
On a ground run.
And it kind of like just runs out of horsepower.
Basically, yeah. I mean,
runs out of horsepower to turn it any
yeah,
faster.
It won't go any faster.
Right.
But that's plenty to get you flying.
Yeah. Now, was that enough horsepower?
Yeah, it was. In fact, it was more than I thought.
So now how much taxiing did you do with that before you? Now
I didn't do enough taxiing.
Now, is this the engine you didn't have anything on the other end of the crank, and you're like,
yeah, and I had to get your advice on what do I do with this? Because my half Volkswagen, it was all taken care of.
Right. The thrust bearing was in the middle.
Yeah, I had to buy an extra. I think it was a clutch plate, and I bolted that. I kind of took it apart so that I still had something there.
I sold you a flex plate for an auto stick.
Right.
Just so you could use the button.
Yeah.
For the thrust, you needed the other side of the thrust because you said
for the shims.
Yeah, like the crank. Nothing's holding the crank in.
Yeah.
Thrust wise,
when I first put together, I was like,
is there's supposed to be this much play here? I'm like,
no.
No, it goes in and out in the eighth of an inch.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I says, no, well, so I hooked you up with and you just buzzed all the rivets out of the flex plate, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And just used a little button and a gland nut and rock and roll.
Yep. Basically it.
Yeah. Solved all your problem there. And because before you were like taxiing around and you always had a load on the prop that kept it pushed. I
put it all together like that and I ran it at idle. And
is that the video where you're just running it on a stand?
In my garage on the fuselage before I put the wings on.
You called it a stand, but it's actually the front of the plane.
Yeah. And I just kept thinking, something's not right.
And you were just starting it with a 2x4 bolted to the front or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was the prop, a 2x4.
Well, I mean, to start, to run the engine.
You just needed something to
you
grab
don't want
onto.
all this wind blowing through your
Right.
through your garage, through your
Yeah.
workshop. So you just you get a 2x4, you cut it, you put the bolt holes on it, and you bolt it onto the
You make
prop
sure
hub.
you're kind of in the middle, so your balance isn't crazy off.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was a good video. Maybe we could find that.
Yeah, we could. That's awesome.
I'll shoot it to you.
Yeah, we'll find that and put that on. That was amazingly dangerous. A 2x4 spinning around.
Yeah.
So
how much flight time did you have with this plane?
Okay, so my first.
There's a story here.
Yeah, I started taxiing it around, and this thing was squirrely to taxi.
Because of the constant right hand turning?
No, because it was more engine than the airplane needed. And I ended up
too much power.
I thought I could do it with S turns.
Mm-hmm.
If I stopped S turning, the thing would start going. It would just start accelerating. Yeah.
So hold on. So as you're taxiing down the runway, it's got too much power and it's pulling it left and it's pulling
it forward, and before you know it,
he's
you're
trying
going
to slow down
30 miles an hour on the taxiway.
So you're just trying to like taxi just to work out all the kinks before you take off, and this thing just wants to take off.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I brought it back into the shop and I built some brakes, put some brakes on the wheels.
Before it had no brakes.
you don't really need brakes on these little airplanes.
No.
You really don't if you
they
got
hit
the right
the ground
engine.
and you put it to an idle and it just
just stop, because mostly you're landing on grass. If you're landing on asphalt, then at the end you want to start maybe doing some S turns to slow you down more.
Yeah, it's just
like
like going on a hill when you're skiing.
Yeah.
You go straight and it wants to go, and you start turning and you slow down.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I put brakes on it, and so I got the taxiing under control.
They were brakes off a scooter or
scooter brakes that I bought off. I got them from scooters.com or something like that. And
just a little cable operated disc.
Exactly. It was a handbrake on the stick.
Yeah.
Hold the handbrake. They both, it took a while to calibrate them so they pulled evenly.
Yeah, yeah. And they don't work in the air for some reason.
No.
All right, so you get this back in there, you figure out you need brakes on it.
Yeah, I put brakes on it, so it's taxiing fine. I'm taxiing around, and finally the morning comes when I'm ready to go flying. And I get it on the runway, and here's what was on my mind. It was a 2,000-foot runway. I should have. And another guy that had one of these said, well, you might want to go with a long runway on your first takeoff because you want to, make sure that you're tracking before you, take off. But this, unfortunately, where I had my hangar, it was a 2,000-foot runway. I'm not going to say which airfield it is.
I was going to ask you that.
He's not allowed back there.
So I get on there. I'm actually it's a grass runway. I'm at the very end, and I went full throttle on the throttle. And in World War II, there were these airplanes called the F-4U Corsairs.
Okay, Corsair. Sure.
Yeah, and the gull wing fighters. That the reason they're gull wing is because the prop is so huge, and the engine is so torquey that if it had straight wings, the prop would be close to the ground. You had to have a gull wing to hold the prop off the ground.
Okay.
But these were known for doing torque rolls.
Oh, okay.
If you add power too quickly on takeoff,
just wants to spin the whole
take off
airplane around.
It'll roll in the air, and then you're right in the ground.
So as soon as you take off, there's so much torque that it actually just twists the plane upside down, and
it twists the airplane upside down, and then you hit. Yeah. So I had the same situation. I had maybe a little too much engine, a little too much torque, a little too much prop. I went full throttle, and the thing immediately turned right.
Like on the runway, you hadn't taken off yet.
Hadn't taken off. I just turned right. So I'm another thing that I want to, stop right here and say, okay, arrogance.
Nobody's judging.
I flew Harriers.
Yeah.
I flew A4 Skyhawks. I was an instructor pilot. I've owned other airplanes.
Right.
but just pure stupid arrogance.
I got this.
Yeah.
Hold my beer.
Right, right. Full throttle, airplane turns right, and I'm immediately left aileron, left rudder all the way in the ground. I'm like pushing it through the floor.
Yeah.
And it starts righting itself, and I'm like, all right, all right. And the thing on this also that I wasn't used to was the nose is long. It's a World War One, and it's really cocked up in the air. So you can't really see where you're going. You're looking at the sides. And so I was on the right side of the runway. I knew that, but I'm like, all right, it's starting to correct. It's starting to correct. And I start getting light on the wheels, and it takes off. And this runway, when I say this, the pilots that go there are going to know exactly which airport I'm talking about. But it's got one tree on the right side.
It did have one tree, or it had
One tree.
It had one.
It's still there. I took off just enough. My landing gear hit the top of this tree, and it basically stopped. And I went down into the bean field. I probably was only going 40 miles an hour.
And how many feet off the ground were you?
Maybe 20.
20.
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
But still,
20,
yeah,
30. But
He's the only guest we've had on that survived the plane crash
that we know of.
to date.
yeah,
Now that poor plane, it looked worse than it.
well,
probably
the nice thing about these little airplanes, first of all, they're so light.
Yeah.
They're not going to hit that hard.
the heaviest thing is the engine.
Yeah, the heaviest thing is the engine. And it's light aluminum, so when I hit the ground in the bean field, the left wing just absorbed all the punishment.
Just
It
folded out.
crumpled.
So when you came down on your left wing.
Came down on my left wing and then kind of flipped
Nose planted.
forward, nose planted in this, the plowed field.
Oh yeah, it looked
Did you flip the plane actually?
Nope.
No,
It just came down on the wing.
smushed it.
It smushed into the ground, and obviously the engine was stopped by then.
Yeah.
Um,
The ground will have that.
Yeah,
on the motor.
yeah.
Yeah,
But and I sat there and said a few choice words. Not a scratch on me.
Wow. You
Yeah.
just
Climbed out,
got up and walked away.
walked away. Yeah.
and he
This
walked
fucking
away.
plane.
So what happened to that plane? Then you got rid of that
Yeah, got rid of the Fokker.
one. now, did you sell it as it was, or
No, I scrapped
For
it.
parts.
just scrapped
Everything on it was bent.
It? Yeah.
The
right.
fuselage was bent. Everything was bent.
So you just parched it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, a rule of thumb in the plane industry: don't buy a plane that's been crashed already.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that's almost an impossibility.
Yeah,
It
no,
seems like.
all the aluminum was bent.
Yeah.
So I called the airport manager and I explained my airplane's in the bean field. And he said, okay, well, how long is it going to take you to get it out of there? And I said, a couple hours. He said, all right, that's good.
Okay.
No more need to be said.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
And I said,
and,
okay.
and it seemed like it was less of a crash and more of a ran out of.
Well, I
runway
reported
thing.
it to the FAA as a ground mishap.
Right.
It's
That's
exactly
that
what
was,
it was.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
The ground is at fault.
And that the airplane was no longer. So
Yeah. So and then
the numbers were retired, and I still have the tail, the infamous Fokker tail, in my garage.
very, very cool.
Was the
That's
motor-
another thing is I didn't, that Fokker tail, is the round tail, with the black cross on it.
Hmm.
That Fokkers had, the D3, which is the triplane, has that.
Mhm.
It's too small of a tail, really, when you think about
That
it.
would have probably saved you if that tail
Was bigger.
had more surface.
If I
area
had
to it.
more air going over it too.
Mhm.
If I had been able to get it, stabilized and had more air flowing over the tail, I wouldn't have been continually going right. But anyway, like I
Yeah.
said, arrogance, and
Yeah.
So was that motor salvageable at all?
the motor was salvageable
Okay.
because I pulled it off. I took it completely apart, complete tear down, cylinders, pistons, and I took out the crank.
Did you find anything broken internally?
Nothing.
Okay.
No, it was a
The-
plowed field.
The props
And
are
it stopped. No, the prop did not survive. The prop was broken. But it was a plowed field. So I thought, I'm going to check this crankshaft out.
Yeah.
So I did a ping test on it.
Sure.
I hung it from the ceiling with a wire got a little hammer, pinged all around it, and I had clear notes all the way around.
Sure.
So
Good to go.
to me, it was fine. I thought about paying for an ultrasound, but
No,
I just figured the ping test.
You could have had it
be fine.
magnafluxed pretty. I have that done once in a while.
Yeah, magnaflux.
Usually it's bent. Usually they bend first.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
it's, if it locks up,
Yeah.
it usually locked up and it's bent. So
Yeah.
there's no saving it.
No, it turned fine after I got it off the ground.
So that engine lives again?
The engine lives again. I'm working on my third airplane.
So what's this third airplane?
Third airplane is much more conventional than a Fokker D8.
It's actually going to have a tail section.
It's going to have a nice big tail. It's going to have nice big wings with big ailerons.
Yeah.
I'm going with a smaller prop this time, so it'll get more RPMs, which will be a little more horsepower.
Right. But it'll be less torquey.
Less torquey.
Right.
With a smaller prop. Yeah.
Sure.
It's called a Texas Parasol.
So
how long ago was this crash or this ground event?
A year and a half ago.
Oh, okay. So it was
Oh yeah, that's
fresh.
Yeah.
That poor plane never saw
it's hard. It's hard.
all that work.
Yeah.
To
Well,
drill
2
it
years
into
of
the
work.
ground.
Well, it's just like building a race car, putting all that money in and getting out there and crashing it day one.
Yeah, right. Or exploding the motor or something the first time you
It
hit
happens. I mean,
Yeah.
My wife is such a trooper. I mean, she just
it. Shout out to Sean's wife.
yeah, she knows how much I love it, and she actually went with me to pick up the parts and put it on the trailer. She helped out.
She witnesses.
No,
Oh,
no.
thank God.
I didn't want her to be there on my first takeoff. Same with my first airplane. You want to be alone when you do it, 'cause,
You don't want any witnesses.
right.
no evidence.
You can videotape it and go, it went well.
Well, not only
And then
that,
if it
but
doesn't go
you
well,
don't want
then
your
video.
wife to-
I hit delete.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go. So how far along are you on this next plane?
Well, I got the engine all together. Same specs, dual carbs. Speaking about the carbs, there's a lot of different carb configurations you can do. I go with dual Mikuni carbs. On this, it's a 40 millimeter flat slide carbs, so one on each side. And the reason I do that is because, you can also mount carb in the middle on the top, or you can mount it underneath.
Right.
On the top, you're kind of obstructing the pilot's view.
Mm-hmm.
On the bottom, I think, you have more of a possibility of carb icing down there.
Okay.
And the reason I mount them on the sides is because you got the heat flowing over the heads and flowing over the rear exhaust tubes, and that heat goes right to the carbs.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about icing in your carburetors, which is something pilots have to worry about.
Right. That's the biggest problem with the airplane. Volkswagen powered four-stroke airplane stuff is you're up there and the carbs ice up and thing runs like garbage.
Right. It starts coughing, losing RPM, and
it does not like
you gotta
sucking
get on the
in the
ground.
ice air.
Yeah.
So that's a good deal. So when do you think that thing's gonna be done?
I haven't built the wings yet, so that's like the last thing I got to do.
So now,
So maybe by the end of this year or
We should go out
next year.
and we could videotape it, and then if it goes well, we can put it on. And,
Okay.
if it crashes, we were never there.
I mean, I'm down. Let's do it.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. The listeners would love it. Maybe we can get some
Okay.
listeners out there.
Yeah.
I sent you a picture of it, so
Yes.
there's
Yep.
pictures of it out. The progress I've got. I've got the middle section of the wing already mounted because I've got the fuel tanks in there because it's got gravity feed to the Mikuni carbs.
Okay.
Just like a motorcycle.
Yeah, they work better with gravity feed rather than
And my
than a fuel
Kuni
pump.
carburetor.
Yeah.
Motorcycle carburetors don't want a lot of
pressure.
fuel.
So real quick, back to the plane. Like, so when you're building this plane out, you're buying a kit and then you're building the kit, or are you developing, like, you buying sections and then build?
The Fokker was a kit, but the other ones are just basically plans that you can buy. The Affordaplane, the plans are basically free.
Okay.
This one, the plans, I think I sent $20 off,
And,
you get,
and you're sourcing, like, is there a company that sells all the equipment or all the pieces, or are you basically making everything from scratch?
well, there's companies like I talked about, Scott Kassler in Arizona, and Great Plains Aviation.
Also, notice.
Yeah. where you can order. They've got a whole catalog of
Okay.
things, like the particular type of intake you need to run back to Mikuni carbs off of
Gotcha.
a dual port, that kind of thing.
But the
exhaust
fuselage
tubes.
and the wings and the
I get my metal from. You can either get metal from kind of expensive places like Aircraft Spruce is one place they sell aluminum, or another place called Wix, or you can go to a local distributor like Speedy Metals in Rockford, and I just get 1 inch round tube. I get angle and
So kind of like you're building a roll cage for a car. You're just basically sourcing metal, measuring and cutting and welding.
you got to make sure you get the right aluminum.
okay.
60, tempered right, 6061 T6.
Yeah,
That's cool. Like
Is the type
seriously,
of
like
aluminum.
you're
Yeah.
literally in your shop just building
yeah,
this
it's
plane.
Exactly,
built.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's
And this last one that I'm building, the fuselage is all solid rivets. You rivet, it's like a 1 inch angle that you're riveting together with solid rivets. So you got to learn how to do solid rivets, and basically I have I do everything on a budget. So I have
typical
a squeezer.
Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Some guys, it's a lot easier with a rivet gun, but I squeezed all my rivets myself.
Oh,
There you
wow.
go.
Yeah.
That's your workout. That's your
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
your Planet Fitness.
Keeping
Yeah. Your hands get tired. Yeah.
Planet Fitness. Yeah. So it's one thing I probably never talked to you about is probably do you ever plan on driving a Volkswagen instead of flying them?
I talk to my wife about that all the time. I would love to do a Carmen Ghia build.
Sure.
I love this. I had a Volkswagen in college.
Sean's got a Carnegie. Breaks up
For
for you.
sale.
Right now I'm a little occupied.
He's light on funds.
Yeah, light on funds. But I had a Volkswagen Bug in college that I loved.
Sure.
Had a great time with it.
Oh, we
Rebuilt the engine.
you're already kind of part of the community, so
Yeah.
it's not a big step to start monkeying with a car instead of just flying them around in the sky. But yeah, it's very cool. Very cool.
There were times with that Volkswagen I had to park it on the hill so that I could get it started.
Oh, sure. Sure.
I loved it.
Yeah, the battery's dead. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna park on this hill and just roll until I get going fast enough.
Or have Prescott push you through the gas station parking lot.
But yeah, push you through the gas station to get it lit. That's an actual story.
We were coming back from Oshkosh and stopped to get gas, and all of a sudden it just didn't want to start.
It started all day like
No
clockwork. No problem, because we did the David Ward podcast that day, and we drove around all over.
Yeah, we drove up to Oshkosh, went to a show there, and then we drove up to Dave's house, and then drove around there, and then on the way home we stopped to get gas, and all of a sudden she just didn't want to start.
Yeah, so here's me pushing it through the parking lot at the gas
have a heart
station.
attack.
Yeah.
We got it lit off though.
Yeah. She fired right up.
She fired right up, and back home we went. So yeah, it's
Good time.
Yeah, it's good times. Everybody has a Volkswagen story.
I love the engine. It's just awesome. It's
It's
every man.
Yes,
engine.
it's a engineering marvel.
Yeah.
And now that was kind of the reason that we wanted to have you on the show, because there's so many uses for the Volkswagen motor that are out there that not a lot of people know about. My buddy Mark, he has a concrete saw it's a Volkswagen powered concrete saw. He picked that up on Facebook Marketplace, and it's just some unique items. There's been other stories of other like pumps, firefighter pumps.
If you watch Gold Rush, Bering Sea Gold, there's a couple guys that have Volkswagen powered water pumps.
Yeah. No doubt.
To run their rig, and like really.
The other thing is you can buy parts everywhere. I mean, I bought a case for this engine that I have now at the EAA Air Show from a guy. And he brought it. I put it on my shoulder and walked it back to my car. That's the case that I brought to you, and you said it's no good.
Oh, yeah.
And then you sold me a good case.
I think it had a split web.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is terrible. Those people shouldn't be selling stuff at an air
show.
Yeah.
I know.
No.
Was it cheap enough at least?
It was cheap.
Okay.
Yeah.
A couple $100.
Oh, that wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
I think I sold you a case for less than
But that,
Yeah, I
mean,
think you did. Yeah.
I hope
Yeah.
I did.
I always know that when you're starting something, you could get tipped, and it's part of the learning process.
And that's a problem with the cases. I mean, unless you're torquing it down, checking it right there, you don't know until you get it back home, get it cleaned up, and take a look at it.
Yeah, I'd much rather buy a complete long block core motor complete than buy a case. There's a reason it's sitting at the swap meet all by itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It ain't no good.
Some of those websites you see where they got a barn floor with 50 cases sitting there, and you just wonder.
Roll the dice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we did last year when what's his name closed his doors. Gene's Bug, was it Gene? Gene's Bug Hut. He closed his doors and he had a trailer full of cases. And I'm like, hey, Prescott, go there, pick out 10 of the best ones that you think. I was like, we're never gonna have the opportunity to just sit there and buy 10 cases at once or whatever.
Yeah, I bought a couple. You bought a couple. Everybody. Yeah, I just rolled the dice. They weren't all that great, but
yeah, I think I got
one
or two good ones out of the patch, but whatever.
Yeah, I bought all that stuff from Gene before he closed up. I'm gonna do that more and more. That's the way it goes.
Well, that's why I put that list together, so that way we know who's still out there.
Everybody complains about, there's nobody left to work on my stuff.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's a long living industry that slowly dying away.
Well, with YouTube, there's no reason why you can't at least try to fix it yourself.
Yep.
Just Google what's wrong with your stuff. YouTube video pop up, and it might be wrong information, might be right information. I don't know, but it's
Facebook
it's out
has
there.
these groups. I mean, and that's there's aviation, Volkswagen engine.
Yeah, I'm on a couple of those.
Yeah, and there's ultralight airplane groups, and there's Texas Parasol groups, and Fortiplane groups.
Yeah, the Facebook Volkswagen powered aviation one is pretty good. There's a bunch of guys on there that are
South American. A lot of South American guys who really hit the translate button.
Hey, you'll have to share the podcast info when we get this out. Maybe we can finally get that South American listener that we've been.
the one South American listener.
That's the one continent or the one country that we don't have any listeners.
We don't
That's
have
amazing.
Any, we have no listeners in South America.
Maybe there's already so many podcasts down there in Spanish.
I think that's the problem.
I think their Wi-Fi is a little weak.
Yeah,
I don't know, but shout out to South Wales, Australia.
They were number 3.
Number 3.
That's awesome. I saw that.
Yeah, amazing.
All right. Well, I think. Do you have any other stories you want to tell, or any?
No, we'll have Shawn on again after he flies his plane and doesn't crash it, and we'll see how that goes.
That'll be fine.
It'd be wild.
I learned
if you did a flyover when I have my car show here in the summer.
Okay.
Just like a football game.
And don't worry, there's plenty of fields around here to land in.
Well, that's the nice thing about southern Wisconsin is it's all corn and bean fields.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna land, it's better to go in a cornfield than a bean field, because a cornfield is kind of cushiony.
Okay, it's a
bean field will catch your landing gear and wrap them up.
Oh, just stop.
And you'll start rolling.
You won't need them scooter brakes.
Right.
Tech tip of the day for all you Volkswagen powered flyers out there: make sure you land in a cornfield.
Well, thank you, Shawn, for being on.
Thank you very much for being on the show.
Very, very, very fun.
Great story. I love it. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Like we said before, if you got any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out. We are at bcbugtalk@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at Brew City Bug Talk. If you're listening to this and you know of a shop, get on there, send us an email or something, send us a message and let us know about a shop so we can get it added to the list.
Yeah, for sure. Shawn lives for this stuff.
Yes, this is my life.
He wants to make this list crazy.
Yes, it's cool. I think it's a good idea for.
He wants one in every state.
Yes.
So Alaska.
Yeah, come on, Alaska.
You can do it.
And if you're in another country and you're listening to this, send us information there. I'd like to expand the list to other countries too, because obviously you guys have shops there and in need of shops.
Obviously, there's shops in Australia.
Yeah, I had somebody asking me about Canada, and I'm like, yeah, we'll do Canada. And I was like, you got a shop? He's like, well, no, I'll look. But yes, reach out. Let us know. If you got any questions or comments, reach out. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thanks. Peace out.
Have a good day.